I knew I was going to mess that up but I wanted to look up the definitions of the origin of the definition of play and the origin of the definition of game. The origin of the definition of game is from Gothic, a Germanic language that is now extinct, and means participation, communion. Um, it means participation. And then play is from Middle Dutch, meaning to rejoice, be glad. So here's the thing. In a game, in a game, everybody has to play a role, right? There is the winner, there is the loser, and there are the people in between. And each of them may play a different role along the course of the game, and that is called strategy. Now, play, to rejoice, be glad, is an intention that can exercise itself in games, right? You can, like, play begets games. That is why games were created, to be glad, to entertain oneself, to be amused, which is also what game means, amusement. But it also means participation. Amusement, it can, in its most modern, in its most modern archaic sense, it means joy, amusement. It came to mean many words, but originally it came to mean participation. So the difference between thinking of life as a game and thinking of life as play, to me, is quite large. When we think of a game, when we think of life as a game, we imagine that we must, as a consequence, be in a position, in a lineup of who's winning and who's losing, or who is ahead and who is behind, or who's on top and who's on bottom. It is this competitive thinking that doesn't necessarily serve the greater population. And so self-satisfaction, hoarding, greed can definitely be a result of play. Or not play, but playing games. And so for that reason, why I want to clarify that is because Pan, in its brightest, and it's on its brightest point along the spectrum, its wholest point along the spectrum, its fullest point along the spectrum of recreation is play. But in the shadow side, or the shady side of that spectrum, where there is less illumination, it may be playing games, and playing games in a manipulative way, in a way that seeks sabotage or cheating or brutality, all these other things. So the other important thing to remember in June, the cautionary card here, is, consider, while you are at play and allowing different versions of yourself to emerge for you to consider as a more full-time personality, because we're constantly going through changes. We're different every day, but it's not as easy to perceive as from year to year over time. So the caution here is, the obstacle here is to not get caught up in your own mind. Part of play that I think should be encouraged at this time, particularly for June, is, community, is bouncing off your ideas and the things that you are really considering about your nature and your personality and your character off people who you can speak to truly and as honestly as possible, without fear or without anticipation of rejection or without anxiety. If you don't have those people in your life, what I would suggest is to start speaking, not harshly, but as honestly as possible as you can about yourself, being as sincere about what you know about your nature as you can to others as appropriate. And in that way, put into the world the kind of person that you are, because that in itself is a movement of energy that will find a response. For some people, they're going to dip out of your life, but that's fine. Let them go. That's an expenditure of energy that could be a vacuum for both of you. But for the people who come near to you, when you start doing that, when you start speaking who you are as honestly as possible, those are the people who will become your community who you can play with safely, and who you can help develop, and who will help develop you, because it's about mirroring here. Now, the danger of mirroring is falling in love with your own reflection. Narcissism. Narcissus. That one motherfucker's name? The Greek dude who fell in love with his own reflection and then turned like 85,000 years old just looking at himself. Probably starved to death too. I don't remember the exact story, but it's probably something along those lines. So it's also not about becoming too caught up with yourself. Play with others. Play around with who you are and who you wish to be with others. See how things go for you when you engage in a manner where you wish to be glad and rejoicing, as opposed to a place just being involved because you want to participate. Don't just be involved in social groups because you want to be in the crowd. You should be wanting to learn things, not just sail by in an experience that you are being a hanger on to. It's about all of us are our own world. That can often become misleading for us in our own minds, and that it leads us to be completely self-absorbed. But there is a balance that can be found. The more sincere and the more honest and the more tangible we bring our situations, our everyday reality, our social group, our form of work, our self honesty with ourself, like actually taking things to yourself before you go, poo-pooing in somebody else's yard. Like, take care of your own house. I mean, the reason people in glass houses don't throw stones is because the stone got to go through their house to get to the other house, right? You bring undue attention to yourself. You're trying to break someone else down, but instead you bring attention to yourself. So that is the Nine of Cups. That is the suit of emotions. Oh, right. So it's also like, don't get all up in your feelings. It's not all about your feelings. There are a million other things going on about how you feel. And also, feelings are also fleeting. And they're also about perspective. Yeah, okay, when you have a natural reaction to something, fine. But when you prolong that reaction because it's more important for you to feel a way than to be resolved, to find resolution, then you are being in your feelings. You want to not be okay. Because if you want to be okay, then the thing you always need to go forward is the resolution, is the connection, is the reaching towards others. This is how we got here as a species. This is not something to take for granted. This is something to utilize. This is something that is alchemical. And it is through communication that we are able to do this with each other, this alchemical work of creating an experience called humanity and human life. And by the way, when this card is reversed, it wasn't reversed, it was right side up. But when this card is reversed, it means contentment and abundance with only minor setbacks. So that is what we are reaching for on the higher frequency of the spectrum. Now, card number 3 is the advantage or the aversion. And we have the Fool reversed. Now, the Fool, like Pan, is also a major arcana card. Not to be mistaken with each other. Pan is not a fool, he's a trickster. The Fool can be a trickster, but not necessarily. Oftentimes, the Fool has no guile, It's innocent. It's true naivety. So Pan and the Fool are not the same. Also, because it's the Fool major arcana, right? So spiritual path, life purpose, what am I doing here? It has a symbolic meaning for the card, and the Fool has a meaning. So the Fool is symbolically called for lack of sufficient motivation and drive, cold, deficient, and weakened state, problems assimilating food and ideas, personal support, people in need of personal support. Reversed, it says irresponsibility, carelessness, flightiness, extravagance, folly. Interesting. There's like doubling down on this message. Some people think that my readings are like tough. And I am a Capricorn rising, so I am ruled by that Saturn energy. And, I am a little bit of a taskmaster. But the thing is, tough love is a difficult and necessary bomb. And bomb, B-A-L-M. And can also be B-O-M-B, though. So why I say that is because, not... Whatever. I told you, I said this in a previous recording because I had to record this more than one time, at least the beginning. But I said, I am not when the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter is in Mars tarot reader. I am more practical. So my readings tend to be like, let's get to work here, right? So why I say that is because we have both an obstacle and an aversion when it comes to our concern in June. So my reading is about, what you need to know. Like, here's the cautionary tale. All right. So we have irresponsibility, carelessness, flightiness, extravagance, folly. Again, this is about like not getting caught up in the game. Also, it's like it's about to be summer. Things are heating up. People are feeling frisky, which is a different kind of play. People gonna be all out saying all the promising words and the good weather and feeling all okay. And then, 3 months from now, when the tides turn and the season is changing, you're going to feel like people did you dirty. But that's not what it is. It's about not tuning out simply because, things are great. We need to be constantly, rigorously attentive to our present self and the things that self is doing. Because oftentimes people find themselves in situations where they want to act like a fool. They want to act like they don't know, and how did it happen to me, and like, what did I do? Well, the first thing you do is you were there. So that's number one. So maybe start there and reflect out instead of looking at everybody else in the situation being like, and you and you and you and you. It starts here. You are the person who carries yourself around if you are, body movement oriented. I don't know what the appropriate statement is if you are, able to carry around your own person without help physically. Then, you are accountable to you. You're the one putting yourself or arriving in those situations, and you are the one responding. So it's about accountability. Woo! Irresponsibility, carelessness, flightiness, extravagance, folly. Like, we can't afford, just because we are learning how to be playful again and playing with our personalities, we cannot afford to be fake in this situation. This is an opportunity. This is, again, about not playing house. This is not a game, people. Yes, we are playing here, but for whatever reason, you have been given a life. And obviously, yes, the reason is that two people came together and procreated you. But the fact that that is a phenomena is something beyond your comprehension and understanding. And there is an awe and a regard that has to be had for that. There's an awe and regard that the Fool does have for that when the Fool is right side up. Because when the Fool is right side up, it says, detached innocence, no responsibilities or cares, freedom to roam and enjoy unfettered energy. In a lot of ways, I feel like the Fool right side up is like existence itself. Existence is allowing for the most foul things in our imagination to take place, and it's also allowing for the greatest things we've ever known to take place. And it's more or less impartial. It's impartial because it's existence is life experiencing itself. Each of us is a version of that, and everything is a version of that. And so there's a real right side up Fool quality to existence because it suffers fools. It's responsible for them. It also creates geniuses. It's the yin and the yang. It's the paradox. It's alpha and omega. It is what happens when two forces that seem opposed come together and make magic. Sometimes that magic is destruction. Sometimes that magic is order. But the thing that decides that is the thing there at the present moment. The thing there in every moment where something is being made into itself. And so in our lives, that thing is us, the individual, you and me, doing that independently in your own life. You need to save you. You are the one. You are the only hope for you. And so, don't be a foolish fool. If you're going to be a fool, be a right one. And again, extravagance. I'm getting like, don't blow the bank in June. Don't, just because the season is high and the things are good doesn't mean that you don't need a little nest egg, a little hibernation pod. I was almost going to say winter is coming, and I did, by consequence of saying that I almost said it. But that is true. So we also need to have the foresight and the vision to intend for our futures, and the fact that tomorrow is unknowable. anything can become true. And that is both the upright Fool energy and Pan, when Pan is doing what Pan needs to do, which is recognizing that things are ephemeral. So we come back to the dimensions. Play, moving through different worlds, not attaching or hoarding or being selfish about anything in particular. And then also I was like, what? And also not forgetting the naivety of self. Like, no person has all the answers. There are great theories, and as time goes on, if humanity survives, I'm sure those theories will creep, dying, contributing to the proving of something else that, contradicts what came before. There is so much to know. And it's better to recognize that now than to feel like you need to be right. It is more important to have resolution than to have righteousness. Resolution provides tranquility, creates balance. Righteousness stimulates fixation and, well, yeah, of course, projection, right? But also, it's retrospective. Righteousness is about, I already know. Resolution is about, this is where I am, and showing up for that and seeing how that reality can heal you. So thank you for tuning in to my first video tarot reading. And I'm going to do another one in July and August, ideally. But this is my first one. And I'm really appreciative for everybody who was here with me for this. And, find the sexiness in being accountable, because there's something really correct about someone who is aware of themselves and aware of others, compassionate, but also direct. And, we can all aspire to be perfect, but it's better to aspire to be they keep giving me the energies, the powers that be keep giving me these music metaphors. There is no perfect sound, but there are tunes. They're giving me this sound tunes. There are tunes that perfectly express themselves. Boom. There's no perfect sound, but there are tunes that perfectly express themselves. And each one of us is something being tuned. So allow yourself to be the instrument that you are. Sing your song. See what is attracted to you. Let what leaves you go away from you. And with that, I conclude this reading, and I thank you for being a part of it. Deuces. I guess I just don't know how to really close this out, but I'm going to close it out right now.